There, good evening to you. Welcome. This is State of Affairs here on GHOne Television, and my name is Lantam Papanko. On State of Affairs this evening, we've got two conversations for you. Our first conversation is with the former Director General of the National IT Agency, National Deputy Director for IT for the National Democratic Congress. He's here in the studio, and so we're going to have a conversation with him as regards a wide range of issues concerning the digitalization drive of this country, who really started the digitalization, and a whole lot of things arising as a result of that. And then later on, we've got an interview that was conducted by my colleague Ibrahim Al-Hassan, who is our guy in Parliament, our parliamentary correspondent and head of our political desk. He sat down with the Deputy Finance Minister, GHOne, who has been in the news recently because of an open letter that he wrote. And it was like a word of advice to his own government, talking about breaking the eight and also talking about running the government like a Ponzi scheme. And so Ibrahim Al-Hassan quizzed him on his sentiments that were shared in that particular open letter, which has caused a lot of people talking about how our economy has been managed over the years. So we'll get into that conversation much later on, also here on State of Affairs this evening. That's what the show is looking like. But remember that July is SME month. And if you own a small or medium-sized business, get ready for an exciting month ahead, because MTN Ghana brings you a host of exciting events carefully planned for SMEs across the regions. Businesses will be given the opportunity to set up at the MTN head office at the SME pop-up event from the 4th to the 30th of July. There are going to be quizzes on our social media pages with exciting prizes to be won. And they've got a developmental and capacity training for SMEs across regions. There are also going to be promotions and major discounts on products to help you boost your pockets and your business. So the month's activities will be capped by SME fairs, and we've already seen some of the SME fairs take place, and you shouldn't miss out on this open invitation to access top-notch solutions, exposure to partners, and the opportunity to put your business on the map. So be a part of the MTN SME Month 2024. Contact MTN today at mtnbusiness.gh@mtn.com or call or WhatsApp 0244 308 1111 and get to know more. Let's get into our conversation right away. Our very first conversation. I mentioned that the National Deputy Director for IT for the NDC is here in the studio. He's also former Director General for the IT Agency under the NDC administration, and the person of Dr. George Atta-Boateng. Doc, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you. How are you doing?
They say it could be better.
It could be better. So it's not good.
It's not good. It could be better.
It's not. Why isn't it good?
Under the circumstances, I think we are all reeling the effects of a bad economy, which obviously could have been far better under the circumstances. So, I mean, the pressure is on everybody. Nobody's been left out. I'm sure I can say the same for you.
No comments on that. No comments on that.
I can understand.
Yeah, but I mean, just on a lighter note, in just about 2 minutes. Well, not necessarily on a lighter note, but you know, the former Deputy Finance Minister GHOne says that Ghana has been run like a Ponzi scheme, and it's not something which is just done under this administration. It's something which successive governments have done, and so you know, the government that you served under also has a part to play in the mess that we are in right now. How would you respond to that?
I don't think so. I mean, first of all, I reject the view that the former government has anything to do with the mess we are in, considering the fact that, I mean, we've borrowed so much money. I don't know, the last time the minister said it was around 742 billion Ghana cedis. And of course, looking at what has been done past 7 years, there's absolutely no way that you can blame the former government or the previous government for the mess that we are in. We cannot in any way take blame for that. It's a mess that they've created. It's an artificial problem that they've created, and unfortunately, we've all, got to. So I mean, his description is I hope you, of course, we will get to know the reasons why he characterized the.
I mean, he talks about how we borrow and then we borrow at high interest rates and then borrow again and then use that money to pay the loans and then go and borrow again. So it's like a Ponzi scheme. You borrow from here to pay here, you borrow from here to pay here. You know, that's what he's saying.
I mean, you've borrowed so much, and you see, we haven't borrowed money to invest to get the money back. Right. I'm not an economist, but you know, I'm a family man.
Yeah,
I know that if I'm going to borrow, at least I should generate something from it to pay the loan back.
Yeah,
you understand?
Yes.
During the time of President Mahama, we got Ghana Gas. Today, Ghana Gas is bringing in revenue. The expansion of the harbour is bringing in revenue. You understand? So you borrow to generate something in return, but you don't borrow to eat. I mean, how?
Anyway,
that's the mess we are in.
But this is not the main crux of our discussion today. I will save this for the economists when they get into the studio. Let's talk about digitalization. You are the IT man here in the studio. And the man whom your flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, will be running against, his main contender, Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is known as the digital man. The man who has spearheaded and revolutionized the digital space here in the country. You know, under his leadership, there's a lot of digitalization going on, from Ghana Post GPS to mobile money interoperability to, you know, a host of things, you know, with regard, I mean, the GHOne and all of that, you know, digitalization. But you folks in the NDC say that, well, the foundation was laid by the NDC and a lot of the things were done by the NDC anyway, and so Dr. Bawumia cannot claim to be the digital man. Why do you say that?
You see, to sum everything you have said, and the so-called digital man, our telecom industry is in a mess. Today, we are struggling to even make calls. We are struggling to pay for data. When we talk about digitization, you know, it's not just about picking and choosing applications and then making political capital out of it. It's not. When we talk about digitalization, it involves two main things. One, digital infrastructure and digital applications. The infrastructure is the base, and then the applications will sit on the infrastructure to run. What is the digital infrastructure? The things that you and I do every day. We make calls. You use internet for so many things, for work, for, of course, for fun, social media, and other things. The infrastructure that you need to do that is what we call networks, fiber networks, LTE networks. These provide a base for you to be able to do all these things. Now, under normal circumstances, telcos, you know, naturally will not maybe extend their network to areas where the population is, let's say, 100 people or 200 people, because it will cost them more to maintain the infrastructure. So what you do, normally what government does is to extend the network to those places so that the networks can come, sit on it, and then what? Offer the services. And in return, pay something to government. John Mahama provided that base. He envisioned 10 years ago that we were going to be in this mess where the demand for basic services were going to what? Or was going to outstrip supply. So he provided the infrastructure base. That is why he built the fiber network all the way from Accra to Boko.
So that was done by John Mahama?
That was done by
fiber network.
Yes, 1,000 kilometers of fiber network. So all the networks along the route don't necessarily have to waste their time or money putting infrastructure there. So they will just sit on the network and then provide services. Apart from that, he did what we call he set up what we call the 4G networks. In fact, the first 4G network that was deployed in the country was done by John Mahama. It was what we call WiMAX 3.75. I will explain that later.
3.75 G. Is that what it has to do with Airtel at the time was using? Also?
Yes, WiMAX. But you see, the distance between 3.75 and 4G was very small. So President Mahama said, okay, we had put up this 3.75 WiMAX network. Why don't we move on to or switch to 4G network?
Yeah.
So that it will cater for us for the next decade. So he built 4G networks across the country. And he strategically positioned them in areas like the hospitals and schools where government agencies do not necessarily have to seek a third party to buy internet capacity and other things. So they could plug into the Ghana government network and then offer services. That was the infrastructure part. Now he said, okay, we have this infrastructure. We need to regulate how data, internet data flows through the system so that there's no traffic for us to lose data, so that your internet speeds will be faster and cheaper. So he set up what we call the Internet Exchange Point at the National Data Center. This was envisioned 10 years ago. So he came up with the biggest tier 3 data center in the whole of West Africa, which today hosts almost all the internet service providers. So it is regulating the traffic so that you and I don't have to waste data. And of course, it guarantees that you also spend less on data. So had it not been this, it would have been a big mess.
So you're saying the infrastructure that we are currently working with, that the former vice president is working with to do the digitalization.
Who's the former vice president?
I mean, the current vice president, I beg your pardon.
No, that's
the current vice president, you know, is something which if John Mahama hadn't done, he wouldn't have been able to. That's in essence
yes,
what
that's what I'm trying to say. That you see, if Dr. Bawumia had extended these networks that I'm talking about, the fiber, the 4G networks, we wouldn't be in the mess we are in now. Would have been paying less for data.
And you talk about, you know, the
we would
cost
have been
of
spending
data.
less. Yes, we would have been spending less on data. Yes.
And I mean, recently there's been this conversation on social media about the high cost of data.
Of course. Yes.
But we are told that within the, I mean, relatively speaking, when you look at the cost of internet data, you know, across the African continent and elsewhere, Ghana's internet data is relatively cheap.
Which country?
I mean, when this conversation started on social media, the NCA released a statement in response to a lot of people who were complaining about the high cost of data on social media, and saying that, yes, we hear you, but relatively, when you look at the cost of data in many places, Ghana's own is relatively cheap, about the third cheapest.
I wish you could be more specific and tell me the country that data is cheaper. You see, there's a report from the ITU on measuring ICT indicators in the country. I hope you get the opportunity to read the portion on Ghana. It's that bad. It is that bad. So, coming back to what I'm saying, the infrastructure provides the space for telcos to operate. Now, it's not just the infrastructure. You're also talking about applications, the things that run. If you're talking about applications, we are talking about what we call e-commerce. E-commerce is basically all transactions that are done online. Now, John Mahama, at the same time, during those days, envisioned that everyday essential services that Ghanaians need, you and I, like application for passport, application for driver's license, application for birth and death certificate, all these things sometimes take time to get. So why don't I digitize the entire process? And that is what brought in what we call the eservices.gov.gh, which enables citizens from all walks of life to at least apply for what we call birth certs, driver's license. In fact, in most cases, they were even able to file their taxes online. He also made sure that, okay, if we have this in place, then how do people even pay for them? That is what brought in what the epay.gov.gh, which basically enables citizens, whilst you are applying for birth cert, passport, and other things, then you are able to pay with your debit or credit card, pay with Momo, or even check. All these things were going on. In fact, that is one of the reasons why he set up what we call the Accra Digital Center, which today is the bastion of all application services. Now, during his time, again, he envisioned that not everybody will get the opportunity to travel to Accra to apply for these things. So why don't I set up what we call community information systems, information centers, CICs. A lot of them were commissioned by my boss, the former Minister for Communication, Dr. Omane Boama. A lot of them, all over the country, so that somebody from Brekum or Jamasi doesn't necessarily have to travel to Accra to apply for a passport. We will just walk into the center and apply for them. All that Bawumia has done, and this is what hurts the most. is to box these two platforms together, the e-services and then the ePay into one platform, calling it his idea, his project. So today is Ghana.gov. What he even forgets is that the Ghana.gov, the identity, that Ghana.gov domain name also was created by John Mahama. That was because the Ghanaians' identity on the internet, the .gh platform, that today virtually all websites emanating from Ghana, you have the .com.gh. It's John Mahama's internet registry, which today sits at the Ghana National Data Center. So when you say Dr. Bawumia is taking credit for something, I don't know what he's taking credit for. You mentioned the property addressing system.
Yes.
Very soon, that digital addressing platform will cause problems for us.
How?
You know what we envisioned? John Mahama envisioned then that we needed to physically locate properties in Ghana, take data on those properties, and assign addresses to them. So it could be a central repository for all kinds of things, collection of property rates for security agents. So if a property is registered in your name, all that I have to do is what? Search for your name.
So you are looking at doing physical standing properties.
Because you can't tell Ghanaians to stand anywhere and generate their own addresses. You want them to pay taxes. Now you want them to give you an address where you can find them to pay taxes. Which country does that? Today, people stood at any location to generate their addresses. They've opened bank accounts with them. They've opened businesses. Even the Ghana card you are...
And those are not necessarily accurate.
No! This is a clear and present danger. Dr. Bawumia has put us in a mess.
No, but we are seeing, all around, when you move around, you see these digital addresses, at the various, entrances and gates.
You see,
all those digital addresses. So it's like every single building, is being identified by a digital address. I'm pretty sure in your house, you have a digital address and boss at your gate.
I'm coming. I want you to do an exercise tomorrow. When you stand in front of this property,
yes,
look at the address that has been affixed there, and then use the Ghana Post GPS, which we needlessly pay $2.5 million for, to generate address and see if they are the same. Compare if they are the same. They are not. They are not. They are not. I want you to do this exercise. This is a clear and present danger. People have opened bank accounts. People have registered businesses, all with this phantom generated addresses. And he wants to take credit for. Look at the revenue we've lost as a result of this. That even government of Ghana cannot efficiently collect taxes. If we had done this properly, if he had followed John Mahama's plan, there wouldn't even be the need for the e-levy. So, because this is a huge revenue base.
All right.
Huge revenue.
So moving forward.
And the minister of finance, in fact, admitted in parliament that they haven't done anything to efficiently collect these taxes. Now they are going to work on it. It's taking them 7 years.
So
there was a plan.
Moving forward, how will the future NDC administration handle the digitalization drive better than what Dr. Bawumia has done?
Immediately, you see, that is where 5G comes in. Because 5G is supposed to lift us up. 5G is the game changer. But again, they are going on the wrong path with its implementation. We can't allow them to implement 5G the way they are doing. Because what we need to do right now in the next 2-3 years is to expand the 4G infrastructure. Because if you look at the 3GPP project, which of course oversees the implementation of 5G, we have what we call the standalone and then the non-standalone. The non-standalone means that 5G and 4G are going to coexist. So they are going to coexist, and then maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the line, then 5G will become what? Standalone.
Yeah.
Now, we live in a country where government tells us that 4G penetration is 31%. And yet you want to rush and do 5G. Why? Why?
So we need to complete the
Let's
proper
expand.
penetration.
Very good. That's the first thing we have to do. Expand the existing infrastructure. Once we do that and reach at least 70-80%, then we can start to think about 5G. 5G.
So we are not ready for 5G?
For now, 5G, to me, 5G should be implemented in the next 2 or 3 years down the line. We need to immediately expand this critical 4G infrastructure. Because, you see, 5G is bringing in a lot. Imagine, we are going to change all our devices, our TV sets, our tablets, our laptops, because they have to be 5G enabled. It's a whole new thing. We can't rush. Because if you claim that we are 31%, why the rush to implement 5G? And the way they are even going about it, we need to get it right, in the sense that, you see, we can't afford to have telcos building their own infrastructure across the country, of course, targeted at highly or densely populated areas. Government should build the infrastructure, 5G infrastructure, universal 5G infrastructure, from Accra to Boko to Nchemam in the Brunhafo region. Government should build it so that all the networks will sit on it and then what? Play. Once they do that, they don't have to spend too much on infrastructure. Now look at the revenue that is going to come to government. Because you are going to do voice calls on this network. You are going to do data on it. You are going to do mobile money.
So the telcos will be paying government for using
very good for using
that will generate.
Yes, because at the moment they pay them 1% of the revenue.
Unfortunately, we have just about 2 or 3 minutes to wrap up this conversation. So I want us to end on an NDC note. Of course, the Deputy Director for IT at the NDC. Are you ready for election 2024 as far as IT is concerned? Transmission of results and all of that. Of course, it wasn't very good for the NDC in the 2020 elections with regard to a transmission of results and the IT infrastructure and all of that. Yes. So, is the NDC ready?
We are more than ready. If elections were to be held today, NDC will collate and transmit results within 2 hours after declaration. That one we can assure you. That one, there's no question about that.
2 hours.
NDC is more than ready. Even if elections were to be held today, we will do transmission. We are ready. We are more than ready.
From all 275.
We are more than absolutely 276 actually.
Yes.
Yes. So we are ready. There's no cause for alarm. We are ready. That's all I can say.
Very well. We'll end it here. Thank you. Thank you very much, Doc, for joining us in the studio today for us to have this conversation. And, when it gets there, we'll see how the NDC is going to, work the magic and make sure that all the election results and everything.
You will not be disappointed, I tell you.
It's collated, yeah. We'll see that. But thank you very much for joining us in the studio for us to have this conversation. Of course, you've heard us speak to Dr. George Atta-Boateng. Dr. George Atta-Boateng is the Deputy National Director for IT for the NDC, and he used to be the Director General for IT agency under the NDC administration. Before we go though, July is SME month, so if you own a small or medium-sized business, July is just ended, but MTN still has very, very exciting stuff for you. They are bringing you a host of exciting events carefully planned for SMEs across all the regions. Businesses are given the opportunity to set up at MTN head office, a pop-up event, which has taken place, quizzes on social media pages with exciting prizes to be won. There are developmental and capacity training that is going on across the regions, promotions and major discounts on products to boost your pocket and your business, activations happening all over the place. We've seen some at the Tetekwashi Triangle, we've seen some at the KJTR market, and all of that. Don't miss out on this invitation to gain access to top-notch solutions, exposure to partners, and an opportunity to put your business on the map. So be a part of the MTN SME month. Contact MTN today at mtnbusiness.gh@mtn.com or call or WhatsApp 0244-308-1111. Do stay tuned. When we return, we're bringing you that interview that my colleague Ibrahim Al-Hassan had with Kweku Kwating, who is the Member of Parliament for Boase West and former Deputy Finance Minister and former Chair of the Finance Committee. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to State of Affairs here on GHOne Television. And just gone by, we had an interview with the Deputy Director for IT of the NDC, and we're talking digitalization and other issues. Still reminding you of what MTN is doing this month of July with small and medium-sized businesses. And of course, they are going to be extending this. They are bringing you a host of exciting events specifically planned for SMEs across the region. So if you're a business, you're an SME, take advantage of what MTN is doing for you and be a part of it. It's an opportunity, to do a host of things to boost your business. Quizzes on social media pages with exciting prizes to be won, developmental capacity training for SMEs across the regions, promotions and major discounts on products to boost your pockets and your business. Take advantage of all of this and make sure that MTN is giving you the best that you can get to boost your business. Get access to top-notch solutions, exposure to partners, opportunity to put your business on the map. So be a part of the 2024 MTN SME month. Go to mtnbusiness.gh@mtn.com or WhatsApp 0244-308-111 to know more. Now, my colleague Ibrahim Al-Hassan sat down with Kweku Kwating. Kweku Kwating is former Deputy Finance Minister, former Chairman of the Finance Committee in Parliament. Recently, he has penned down, a piece, an opinion piece, if you want to call it that, describing how Ghana's economy has been run as a Ponzi scheme, among other things, and even warning his party that if they want to break the 8, they would need to stop some of those things and put the necessary measures in place. Ibrahim Al-Hassan, like I said, sat down with Kweku Kwating, and here is the interview.
First of all, let's hear from you. What is wrong with the economy and the way we have run it over the years? What's wrong with it?
What is wrong with our economy since independence is that we have run it like a Ponzi scheme. What is a Ponzi scheme? A Ponzi scheme is someone going around borrowing, and then when it is time to pay off the depositors, they lift the interest rate, entice more people, they get a lot more deposits, they use it to pay the old guys, they squander the rest. When it is time, they even up the interest more, get more people. So they are using the deposits they are taking to pay off previous deposits. They are not doing any investment. Now, the way we have, that is what you call a Ponzi scheme. The way we have been running this economy since independence again, and I emphasize that because I don't like it beginning to look as if we are discussing this MPP administration. Otherwise, we lose sight of what the issues are and we do never get to the bottom of the problem. Since independence, we always spend money we do not have. That is to say, when we program our expenditures, we always program expenditures over and above our revenues, and we do that in the last 20 years. In fact, in the last about 24 years, if you strike the average, we have been overspending our budget by an average of 40.1%. So the money we earn, we never spend within our means. And how have we financed this over expenditures? We borrow. But when you borrow today to finance this year's over expenditures, the following year, you are still incurring a deficit because it has become a way of life. Then we go and borrow more so that we can use some to finance the current year's over expenditures and use some to finance yesterday's over expenditures. The following year, you must borrow much more so that you can pay all the debt that have accumulated in the past, and you go to different people. That is how we have been managing our economy. That is why, in order to drum home the point, I say we are managing this economy like a Ponzi scheme. And it is what is leading us into trouble. And I think the earlier we come to this realization and take steps to stop that economic management misbehavior, the better it will be for the future of this economy.
What is the solution then? Because as you mentioned, yes, in every budget that is presented, government estimates how much money it's going to generate internally, how much it's going to generate externally through loans grants and what have you, and then the appropriation bill is passed. Cyclical. Is it that we should look towards internally generated funds? What is it that we ought to do so that we can collapse this Ponzi scheme you talk about?
We should first begin to spend within our means. It cannot be done overnight, but we should gradually begin to tailor our expenditures and our inflows in such a way that they get close until we reach the point of a balanced budget. Where we are now, it will be difficult. We are owing people. We need to need to close the gap gradually. We need to do that. But that would happen only if we make fundamental changes to our expenditure basket. And I make the point, do we really need 275 members of parliament? Is it possible to do it 200? To be fair to Ghana, in fact, if you look at the best practices, Ghana, relative to our population, has quite few members of parliament, if you compare. But we can lead the way. We can lead the way and say, look, we can run this country with 200 MPs. So we are restructuring our constituencies in order to make this possible. Some of those sacrifices, in my view, must precede the reforms you do in the general population in terms of aggressive tax compliance and all that, because then you would have signaled that charity is beginning at home. The politicians are beginning with themselves. We must deploy a set of policy actions that show that we are leading by example. Once we do that, then we must see what expenditures we will contain, which ones we would not. If we do not have money to do asphalt to a particular place, we do not have the money to do it. We spend our money well, let the economy be stable, let our city be stable so that the private sector can create wealth. And then when they create that wealth and we begin to make more money, we can begin to see what we want to do with the money. But borrowing to do this, and sometimes we don't even have the money to maintain it. So after a certain period, the thing we borrowed to construct, we can't maintain it, and it's as though we did not even acquire it. Who are we kidding? That is why I think we must make fundamental expenditure reforms, look at wherever we can cut costs, live within our means, and if at all we're going to borrow, we know that it is for a certain specific and strategic project that would repay itself. If we do that, then we will see that at some point you are not going to need to borrow again, because the earlier borrowings you did would begin yielding results. So now you can live by yourself and not depend on others. But this perpetual annual ritual of overspending your budget by as much as your revenues by as much as 40%, and doing that year after year, thinking that there will be no consequences, is suicidal, and I would never support that. And it is some of the fundamental changes we must make. And again, as I indicated in the statement I issued, I hope that my party would lead that conversation. They would lead that conversation, lead the reforms, and that is how we get Ghanaians to accept what for me is a fact, that NPP is the best political party in the country.
Yeah. We'll return to your party, but of course, talking about things that ought to change, you talk about the fact that we can cut down the number of MPs and follow up with other economic structural reforms. Yes. Now, there are many who are wondering whether the same scheme we've been overseeing for the past over 20 years, the reason why we overspend revenue by 41%, as you have mentioned, is 40.1, is why we are where we are today economically. That has driven us to go back to the IMF.
Yes, we have been to the IMF 17 times. If you add structural adjustment program and the HIPIC program, 19 times. It is because of this economic management misbehavior. That is what has driven the country to do this. We can stop it. And I think the way to stop it is begin to look at your expenditures, to see which ones you can discontinue for now, to make sure that you are living within your means. Your economy will be stable, your city will be stable, businesses then can flourish. In fact, at that point, if you have money and you're using it to support the growth of industry, you do it gradually in accordance with your capacity, and then gradually with a stable economy, you can see that the future is bright. And then the private sector can step in and create the wealth. Then we know we're building a future for our children. But the way we have been borrowing, destabilizing our macroeconomic framework, and as a result, the depreciating city, which in turn hurt businesses, and then the manufacturing sector is weak, and it's not just under the Nana administration. You look at the records, our manufacturing sector has been traditionally and chronically weak. We need to deal with these problems frontally, get the bull by the horns, and see that we are fixing this. Any resort to political justification and excuses, and we need to win elections, and life is all about politics and very little about what we leave for this country is unhelpful. And when I say that we can more easily break the 8 if we demonstrate to Ghanaians that the things you say about us politicians, we hear them. Your feeling that we are out for ourselves, we don't care about you, we hear them. If the other political parties don't hear you, we MPP, we hear you. And in response to your concerns, we're going to do 1, 2, 3. And that help the country by also playing your part. That is how we build the Ghana that we want.
In your letter, you talked about external factors haven't played a part in where we are today economically. There are many who have said that is you seeking to insulate your party from responsibility, and that actions and inactions of your party and the party in government is to blame partly or largely for the economic mess we find ourselves in. Not just Russia, Ukraine, not just COVID-19.
Yeah, not just. I agree with you that the Russian-Ukraine war and the other hostile external conditions and the pandemic have all impacted us adversely. It is a fact. I mean, it's not something we should argue with. We should argue about. But it is also a fact that when COVID came, it impacted different countries differently. It's not every country that has had to do debt exchange because it went through COVID. The evidence is that those countries that had strong immune system, they are the people who could withstand it better. Those countries that had weak immune systems, COVID impacted us more severely. That should tell us something. That if ever there was going to be COVID, if ever we're going to have external factors hurt us, we want our immune system to be strong. And that is why I call for these changes. And I think my party is capable of leading that conversation. And I want my party to lead not just the conversation, but also the reform.
Yes, there are many who argue that if your party got us here, then it might not have that moral right or even moral capability to argue that it will be the same party that will take us out. Reason why breaking the 8 to some might be a mirage.
Well, don't forget that the alternative has also been in power before, and so we know what the alternative is. I think we could all do better. So if there's a need to change course, it is the political party that demonstrates that it understands where we are, it is hearing the concerns of our people, and is willing to chart a new course. Is that political party that wins the election. Since this statement came out, I have heard some of my own colleague members in the MPP say you are giving ammunition to the opposition and they would. And my response is this: let us make these commitments that we think the political class has failed since independence. that we cannot continue like that. We are changing course and we want to do 1, 2, and 3. Let the person outside the NPP that says the political class has not failed and that things have been good, let them speak and let's see who Ghanaians will believe. I don't believe that this message gives any ammunition to anybody. In fact, if you're a politician and you are not going to align with these realities that people feel in their everyday lives, I doubt that they would even want to entertain you if you campaign.
Let's say NPP doesn't take this message, but NDC does. What does that become of your advice?
These are serious matters. Let's not get into what ifs and hypothetical situations. My objective, I'm a member of the NPP, I have more influence in the NPP. My objective is to sell this within my party and hope that they pick it up. If there are other possibilities, let those possibilities take care of themselves.
Honorable, are you bitter? Because that's what some of your colleagues in your party are saying, that you didn't get the opportunity to serve again in the second term of the Nana administration, so you're bitter. And I'm quoting some of the members of your party.
People may say that, there are some people, and it's partly the way this matter has also been reported. So you see a headline and it says, we're running the economy like a Ponzi scheme. And if you don't get the context and what I mean by we, you interpret it to be the NPP administration. And of course, there may be other people belonging to party, especially party communicators, who get upset. And then, because they are upset, they say, oh, he's saying that they look for reasons why an NPP man will say that. That's where those things are coming from. But if you read the whole write-up and you see, you will not come to that conclusion. And why should I be bitter? I am not bitter at all. Recently, I was invited to take up a ministerial position in government, not a deputy minister, a ministerial position. And I said the work we are doing in parliament is also helpful to government business, and please let me remain here. My superior says, okay, we hear you. They left me here. Why should I be bitter? I have no reason to be bitter. What gives me sleepless nights is the thought that if we don't change the way we have been managing this economy, Ghana at some point would find it difficult to do the basic things governments must do. And I worry that at that point our democracy may be destabilized. And if our democracy is destabilized, our political parties themselves will be no more. That is what is driving me. So those who say he has a problem or he is bitter or they don't know what you're saying, it's also because most of them have not read the write-up in full. I am not bitter at all. Look, I like this government. The NPP is in my blood. I've been an NPP man since my student days. I was one of the founding fathers of GHOne from KNUST campus when I was then doing engineering. Why should I? I love this party. I love this government. I just hope that we'll be able to do things in a way that guarantees a better future for our country and for our children and our motherland.
As a journalist, I know the role you played in opposition and how that impacted on your party's victory. But one will wonder, you were deputy finance minister. Where are all these ideas?
I've always felt that overspending our means is not a good thing, and I've always expressed that wherever I have the opportunity. When I was a deputy minister, these ideas came across in my participation in internal policy discussions. And that is all I could do. I do not think it is proper behavior to sit internally to discuss matters. And when you don't get yours taken, then the next time I'm on radio saying, look, this is the discussion we had at the ministry. I thought this is how we should do it. We didn't do it. And so if there's a problem, I'm not included even though I'm in the ministry. Of course you can do that. I had to be there and to ensure that whatever decisions are made are implemented to the best extent possible, which we did. But different times would call for different reactions. We are all seeing where Ghana is going. And I think it is time we change course. It's becoming more urgent. And that is why we are beginning to push this kind of conversation within our party. I think it's good conversation. I think there are many good people in the party who support the things that I am saying. I hope that we will be able to get sufficient numbers in the party that would get the party to accept that this is a position we must take and that it improves rather than hurts our electoral chances.
How do you expect your flag bearer to take this love letter that you wrote?
Let's not personalize that. I'm sure in due course some of these discussions will receive his attention, and we would see what decisions we can make as a party. He's a party person, and once we all agree he's sitting in, I'm sure he will champion whatever the party decides. So my focus is to get the party as an institution. Don't personalize it. If you do that, you put a spotlight on him. What if there are so many of people in the party who think we must do things otherwise? So let's keep it at the party now. But I know the flag bearer means well for this country, and I know his passion for the economy. I am hoping that in support of his vision, we will be able to do some of these things so that breaking the aid becomes easier, but more importantly, that when we are in government, we deliver what Ghanaians want.
Before we come to your engagement in Parliament, because I've been here with you from day one, you talk about breaking the aid. As it stands now, the party is seeking to do something that has never been done before since 1992. How easy would that be?
Well, we will go in and fight to the best of our ability and hope that we will be able to win the election. We will continue to push some of these discussions and hope that they will be factored into the party's communication and party's conduct approaching the election, so that the breaking the aid becomes easier. But whatever it is, we are there fighting to ensure that the NPP gets power, because it is the best alternative we have, which is why I also think that to whom much has been given, much is expected. When God gives a party like the NPP so much, the men, the history, the heritage, it is a party like that that must step forward to be counted in these difficult times.
Your engagement in Parliament, the last time I had an engagement with you, you were the chairman of the Finance Committee. That's not the case now. How has it been?
Well, that finance committee is no more. In fact, that finance committee has been broken up into 3 committees: the budget committee, the finance committee, and then the economy and development committee. So that finance committee is no more. I'm now a part of the economy committee, and I think it will be interesting.
Yes, I'm talking about being interesting. I was told a report from Parliament on the floor of Parliament, and then subsequent engagement with the majority leader, your leader of the House, that you were going to be majority spokesperson on economy. He added that you were going to chair the economy committee. Then the list came out and you were not the chair. What happened?
Well, at the time the majority leader was putting that out, he had assumed that the NPP would be taking the chair of that committee. They had not sat down. The new standing orders says that the chair for the committee should be determined in accordance with the numbers in Parliament. I think we did not avert our minds sufficiently and just assume that those committees will be ours. So when they sat down to do the negotiations, and it turned out that the economy committee was going to be chaired by the minority, and they were also going to hold the majority members on that committee, then it became clear that I could not be the chair. But I'm on that committee, and we will still help in whatever ways we can.
Yes, there was one fight that you put up. I don't know whether you want to admit that it was a fight you put up, and that was the way we grant exemptions. In fact, Parliament passed the Exemptions Act. Bill subsequently became an act, but there were a number of 1D, 1F exemptions before your committee, back and forth years, and we're told today you are here before the public that you had some issues with the way and manner as a nation we grant these exemptions. Was that the case?
Yes, I think the way we have again been administering our tax exemptions has been problematic. In fact, and I say this to the credit of this administration, since 2001, there has been a certain improvement in the exemptions regime. A lot of leakages have been blocked, a lot of wrongs have been corrected. But there are still some things we need to do. And I take the view that if we want to exempt companies from paying taxes, it must be for a whole industry. The practice of isolating specific companies within an industry and granting them exemption disadvantages their competitors, distorts the industries, and therefore it is not a good practice. So I would any day support legislative intervention that says, say for the steel industry, all of you won't pay taxes. Then nobody has to go to anybody and get a person to bring them to parliament for tax exemptions. It's for industry, so it applies. If we can't do that, then it is not a good idea to be giving it to selected members within the industries. These and other issues were what we raised. It is not opposing them per se, but to say that we must find a way of administering these exemptions in such a way that they do not create the kind of problems we see. That is what the public may have interpreted to be my opposition to tax exemptions. Tax exemptions have their place, but if you don't administer them well, they become counterproductive.
Were the receptions received fair in that regard? Because you were described as a stumbling block, and here I'm quoting.
Well, I mean, if you pose questions and you ask for this information to be brought, somebody could interpret it to be you being a stumbling block. But I think we asked very fair questions. I don't know that people really took offense, but we did our best, and I am happy at the work I did at the Finance Committee as the chair.
Many believe that crusade cost you your seat as a chair.
Well, in any case, even a ministerial appointment, I have said no thank you. Chairman for a parliamentary committee, it's not an issue for me at all. In fact, and in any case, we have 4 months to elections. These are not matters I think we should even bother discussing. They don't come to much, and I still am in a position to support my party in many ways, to support my government in many ways. In Parliament, we will continue to do that. These small things, I guess overlook them.
Finally, what will you say to somebody who says Honorable Kwekukatin doesn't want us to break the 8 in your party?
I rather want us to break the 8, and I am telling the party the messages we must present in order to make breaking the 8 more certain. I know that because of the misreporting partly, but also because as part of the political culture, we are so used to politicians always saying my party has done so well and the other party is so bad, that anybody that doesn't follow that tradition must be bitter, or he's hurt, or he wants why will I want MPP to lose it? I've never believed for once that the NDC or any other political party will be a better alternative than the MPP under any circumstance. And so why will I want the NPP? I want the MPP to win, and it is people who are looking, especially within party, who are looking at these sound suggestions. Which suggestions are coming from what people feel? I remember telling one of my colleagues this morning that, look, if anybody has doubt that this is what the electorate want to hear, go out there and ask yourself, the politicians who are coming, some want to concede that the way we have been managing this economy is not the best. They want to change course. But they are afraid that if they say that, their opponents may say that, we said that you have not done things right. And ask the person, these two political parties, who would you support? And then they can come and we'll have a discussion. Look, election is about people and they want to deliver. What Ghanaians feel right now is that the political class has let them down. It's not just the NPP or this administration. The NDC, they think we politicians are out for themselves. In fact, now you even hear them say that we are friends. And we just come together. And when I heard somebody say that when it comes to ex gratia, now nobody walks out of parliament. The only time they walk out of parliament is when they have to do public business and all that. Look, people don't think well of us. And it is in our interest that we admit this, listen to them, and try and do what they want. Ghana is for them. So if I am urging my party, because I know we are a superior party, to elevate ourselves above everybody else, tell people that we hear you, we agree with you, and going forward, things will never be the same. And anybody thinks that Ghanaians are going to say, then we don't like you as a political party, I find it hard to get the logic. So that's why we'll continue to put some of this message and see where it lands us. But I am clear that NPP is the best party. I urge the public continue to support us. Even these internal conversations we have, we will have them forever. Whether up to the election, we will have them forever. I think NPP has what it takes to take up these suggestions, own them, lead a national conversation on these reforms, and deliver to Ghanaians what they are looking for, and confirm the point that we are the best political party God ever gave Ghana.
I'm sure you understand why the economy is a challenge for the NPP going into December 7th, right? Because things are difficult. And here we have a flag bearer who was the economic messiah, right? And many people believed that. And so if they are going to the elections and we are in this crisis as a nation, you can understand the difficulty, right?
I do, but when you're going to an election and you are going to meet people, the people are human beings. We're not saying we're perfect. In fact, me sitting here, I cannot pretend that as for me I'm a good guy and there's some people who are not good and I'm showing them the way. No. I've been in parliament since 2013. I have been part of all the things that happen in parliament. I've been in government. I am very much a part of the failure of the political class that I am discussing. So if we collectively realize that as a result of the deficiencies of the political class, the shortfalls, and we have let this country down, 17 appearances at IMF plus one structural adjustment program, another HIPIC, is one too many. We are a proud country. We don't want that. And a political party that says, upon reflection, never again. And even though we have been governing this country for some time, when you are leading your life and you see that things are not going right, the wise man is the one who reflects and says, going forward, I will not do the things the way I have been doing them. I am changing course. And in P we say, okay, what the vultures have eaten, let them take it. What is left we will protect. Let us tell Ghanaians that whatever it was, this is where we draw the line. The culture of over expenditures, the culture of bad prioritization, the wastage in procurement, this is where we draw the line. And let's take it to the election and see whether it is our political opponents who say, no, the politicians are good. It is you people who are not good. As for us, we are good. And let's see who Ghanaians will believe.
Believability is also a question. And so if they believe that you are as much part of this mess, in fact, some people believe that you are the creators of this mess, why would they believe that you are now charting a new course?
Look, I have been a member of parliament since 2013. I was part of government since 2017. I have been a very important member of parliament. So I am very much a part of the system. And yet, when I issue this statement and I'm speaking to it, people listen to me and they say, this is what we want. They are not saying what you're saying doesn't make sense because we have given you the chance and you didn't do it, and so we don't believe you. Look, sometimes a good message can be felt. If what you're saying is right, in spite of what you have done in the past, if you are sincere, what you're saying will be drummed home. And I also believe that if you are doing the right things and you are caring about God's people, God has a way of helping you to get the acceptability of the people. Let us have that inner conviction and commitment that the way we have been doing things is not good, and that going forward we want to change course. So God, help us to do this to the satisfaction of your own creation, and God would help us to convince Ghanaians to give us the power to do that.